Social shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hit me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
It has finally happened a decade later. 2015 to 2025. It has now come to an end, and yes, we are talking about arguably one of the best midfielders, one of the best players that we have ever seen in the Premier League history, and that is Kevin De Bruyne. He has intended to leave Manchester City come the end of the season. It looks like his time is up. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest players of this, last decade in this generation. He has been an absolute all-timer. I mean, he is definitely in a lot of conversations that people want to put him into, whether that's comparing him with players of the past, players of his generation. It really doesn't matter. He is one of the best, and it's going to be really sad, watching Kevin De Bruyne play for Manchester City for the last time. I know he does play for a rival, but the reality is I just enjoy watching, fantastic players. But honestly, we're talking about just one of the greatest players that I've ever seen, play in the Premier League. But unfortunately, it looks like his time is up. As I said, people, he's announced that he will be leaving City, come the end of the season. And, it's one of those, it's a celebration. I think we always knew, especially this season with, the injuries that he kind of suffered over the last few seasons. To be honest with you, you could see in the way that he was playing, you can see that, him sitting on the bench and things like that. You can kind of tell that it was kind of nearing the end. It was just really a case of when, to be honest with you, not even a case of if. And where you see some of the goals and some of the things that Kevin De Bruyne has obviously done, throughout his Manchester City career, and the titles and so many different things that he's obviously done, at that football club. And he really has put that football club, into, or has helped, should I say, to put that football club into a whole different stratosphere. The kid or the boy, the young man who we saw sitting on the bench, at Chelsea, not really getting the game time under Jose Mourinho, looked like he was just a player who was going to flatter to deceive, to be honest with you. At that time when he did join Chelsea, I just didn't think that he would go on to be, the player that he ended up being at Manchester City. Heck, even when he joined Wolfsburg, from Chelsea, I still didn't think that, he would go on, to be this kind of dominant player. I mean, you could always tell with him anyway that there was a good player in there. There was, you didn't think he'd have the career maybe that he ended up having in terms of the type of player that he ended up becoming. But I definitely thought, okay, you know what? He'd always be one of those players that, in a few years' time, if he was to, say, for example, retire, we just look at and think, what? He was actually a really, really decent player. During his time, he's had some really outstanding seasons and things like that. Of course, he had that outstanding season for Wolfsburg, before moving to Manchester City. So you just thought he was just going to be one of those guys. But, what ended up happening was, he just turned into, a whole different animal, a whole different beast. And, he took his game to a whole new level once he moved to Manchester City. The thing with someone like Kevin De Bruyne is that it's so difficult to kind of, put him into a box. It's very difficult to kind of, place him into a certain criteria or certain category and things like that. He's not really a normal midfielder, if you want to call him that, attacking midfielder, if you want to call him that. I mean, he has played in central midfield. It drops a little bit deeper, of course. Now, he's out there on the wings at times as well, just in terms of the positions that he obviously picks up for Manchester City. The pinpoint crosses, the tactical IQ that this guy has, like, in football in a general sense, in terms of the way that he plays the game. He definitely has to be in the conversation. People are putting him up, we compare him to the likes of like the Gerrards and, the Frank Lampards, and you can see why, because of his actual skill set. Hence why I don't even know what kind of category you'd put him in. Because he can do a little bit of everything, it makes it difficult. You know, he can do the Frank Lampard arriving late into the box, taking shots from outside of the edge of the area like both Lampard and Steven Gerrard. You know, he can mix it up in the middle. He can play the tiki-taka football if you need him to do that. You know, if I need him to just, you know what, stick out there on that right-hand side and whip some balls in to the striker, he can do that as well. So, you know, he's such a mix. I'm not saying, you know, Gerrard and Lampard, of course, they were excellent players and they were fantastic at what they did, but you could almost kind of put them into a box of the type of individual that they actually were, you know. And I think with KDB, I find it so difficult to really put him in to just one category of a player, you know, because of the skill set that he ultimately showed, you know, throughout his time, you know, in the Premier League. And I think the Premier League is definitely going to miss him. You know, we don't have this level of quality, in my opinion, in the Premier League at this current moment in time. We don't have these kind of players, you know, who are just eye of the needle and just so smart in the middle of the park. So it's going to be big shoes to fill. I'll be honest, Manchester City are going to find it very difficult. Not saying that, of course, that there aren't players out there who could potentially, not necessarily like for like, because, you know, you are moving into a new age of football anyway, but it's going to be difficult trying to find a player who can be as effective, I would say, as a Kevin De Bruyne, especially in that midfield area for what he does, for what he kind of provided the team, his vision, his playmaking abilities. All of these kind of things are very difficult. And when I say it's difficult, I'm not saying that someone can't actually come in and necessarily do that. They probably could, but I don't know if I know anybody who can do that at the level that he was doing it at the consistency that he was doing it at, and for the longevity and for the length of time that he was doing it, you know, for so long. I mean, 10 years in the Premier League that this guy, you know, has been at Manchester City, the countless of titles that he won, you know, whilst he was here at Manchester City is just, you know, honestly, it is genuinely, you know, ridiculous. And even when you look at, you know, his individual, you know, kind of honors, you know, he's won the Bundesliga Young Player of the Year, Bundesliga Team of the Year, Europa League Squad of the Season. He's won Goal of the Month. He's won Manchester City's Player of the Season a good few times. He's been voted into the FIFA World Pro 11 a few times, you know, UEFA Team of the Year, you know, Champions League Squad of the Season, Champions League Team of the Season, you know, Premier League Goal of the Month, Player of the Season, you know, UEFA Champions League Midfielder of the Season. Heck, he did that in the 1920 season. Like, this guy is just mental, man. Honestly, his accolades are ridiculous. You know, it's quite phenomenal. And I think, as I said before, it's just a shame that, you know, now he's decided to call time, but I think maybe it was the right time. I do genuinely believe, you know, it's best to bow out now. Everybody wants to end on a high. Unfortunately, Manchester City are not having the greatest of seasons. He's 33, turning 34, you know, in June. So maybe he feels like, you know, this is the time for a new chapter. So I think we're all going to be quite intrigued to see exactly what is next for Kevin De Bruyne, where he moves to. I would love to see him at my football club, to be honest. But I know that's not going to be realistic. So, you know, it is what it is. Let me know in the comment section, people, you know, where do you think Kevin De Bruyne is actually going to go? You know, do you think he's going to sail off into the MLS? Do you think he might go Saudi? Could another Premier League team? Could he stay in Europe? Let me know your thoughts, man, in the comment section. But big up to Kevin De Bruyne, man.